This is Mommying While Muslim, recorded live and unedited. Watch as Zeba and Uzma record their podcast, see their reactions, and find out for yourself what all the buzz is about.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Mommyingwhilemuslim podcast. This is Uzma Joffrey.
And this is Zeba Hassan. Assalamu alaikum. I've definitely noticed, Uzma, my love, you have upped your hijab game, looking so pretty and bright today.
Yeah,
how's
so much when they're unpacked.
I was going to say, like, how is the unpacking going? Your sister coming to help you out? Like, you must be having a really good week this week.
I really am. We're having a lot of girl time, a lot of late nights with mom and my sister, because my mom came over too, because my sister and her kids are here. And it was my mom's birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
She did not tell me how old she was and obviously listens to our podcast. So she said, I'm not allowed to broadcast it. But we did have, the cake.
She's
with the
25.
grandkid. Yeah, she's 25. So I'm an infant still. We know this. So we had her birthday yesterday with all the grandkids and just staying up late at night, talking to mom, talking with aunts and cousins. Like, it's a girl party every night. So it's pretty fun. Once the kids are down to bed, it's a lot of fun.
So are you sleeping at all? Because I know that was something that you really wanted to do, or have we decided not to sleep while sister and mama are with you?
No, actually, I'm falling asleep because when we did the IG takeover on Wednesday with Near Beauty, I had asked them, I was like, hey, what is this tea number 9? Because every time I drink it in the day, I need to lie down for a nap. So it actually has chamomile, and I think pretty concentrated chamomile, because I've had straight chamomile tea before, and it never made me sleepy. This stuff is probably concentrated, and it puts me down really fast. So I wait until like halfway through my conversation with my mom and my sister, and then I take it.
And then take it.
So I'm in bed by 11:30, which for me is pretty good. It's not 2 a.m.
Yeah, that
anymore.
is good.
That's really good.
I've already woken up for the first time after I've gone to bed at 11:30.
Oh, you wake up in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I still do.
Oh, that's right. Bladder. We have the
Hello.
bladder issues. Yeah.
I have to, yeah, okay, everybody knows that now. I have to go to the potty. Like, I drink 3 or 4 liters of water a day, and it just keeps coming out, and I hate that.
It does. So how was your week this week?
So, we are still getting the hang of the whole homeschooling, virtual schooling, everybody at home schooling, my husband working from 6 to 10 schooling, and me just trying to map it all out. The reality is, we're doing the best that we can. I have to say, maybe I was a teacher in another life, because I love doing it with my kids. And when you see like that, you can literally see that aha moment when something makes sense. And you're just like, I'm actually speaking their language. And I do feel like I was so worried about it. You remember, I was going back and forth, had to relearn 5th grade math. I'm not going to pretend like that's not true. But because I understand how they work and how they function, because I'm their mother, I feel like they're learning more. Not that I don't love all my teachers and my teacher friends, because they do the best that they can, but there is something to be said for that one-on-one instruction with your kid. The reality, though, is I'm also in school and having to do my stuff in between. But you know what? It's all blessing and all upside, and that's how I'm going to choose to look at it, and inshallah. But the one thing I keep hearing, and I kind of texted you this morning, is what the heck is this cuties business, and what the heck, sorry, not hell. What the heck is going on? Because Uzma is my go-to person to find out all of this type of information. So I'm hoping it's on our soapbox today because I need to be schooled on what the issue is. So Uzma, what is our
Yes.
soapbox today?
Our soapbox today is about cuties. So, Netflix came or has this new show on that's been directed by Maimouna Doucouré. She is a Senegalese French Muslim woman. She is black, and she directed this movie that won at Sundance. And it's basically about how I believe I have not watched it, full disclosure, okay? And not because of politics or any kind of moral or conscientious objection. I just don't have time. And there's kids in my house, and I don't, a bunch of them, and I don't really want to watch that around them. I have to look at it first before I let them see. But apparently, the story goes that it talks about an immigrant girl that goes to some European country and gets into the whole dance movement because it's something that's very highly promoted by the West. Western influences say that little girls should dance and wear suggestive clothes, and it's all like, part of their creative expression and freedom and womanhood and girl power. And she talks about how easy it is to get sexualized and then to get victimized by pornographic influences that are out there in the world. And the director herself, she actually had a live with Hannah Zuberi last night. I missed it, unfortunately. So this is all completely organic. This is straight Uzma Joffrey. But her interviews that she's given in the past are that nudity and all of this Western dance culture and stuff is a form of oppression. And that's what she was trying to do. Well, unfortunately, she aligned with Netflix, who cares about ratings, right? So they put out this very suggestive poster, very hypersexualized little girls of different colors, diverse little girls. But when like TLC or Bravo or whatever TV show had like toddlers and tiaras running with those same suggestive pictures of little white babies dressed up and hypersexualized, and when they had pictures of little white girls in their tiny little two-piece dance costumes, those shows ran for 7, 8 years without any kind of outcry. But then you put a black Muslim woman in charge and in power, creating something that is a commentary on the ills of Western influence on all of these other cultures, on itself, first of all, for making pornography available, distributable globally and affecting these other countries, and then to hypersexualize youth and then market it. This film is supposed to be a commentary and critique on that. And yes, there are some scenes that are pretty graphic to show what happens, and major Muslim American scholars have come out against the film. I believe, because they haven't watched it as well, um, it's because there is this very patriarchal, and it's people I respect. I humbly, in my humble opinion, I do think they should probably either watch it or talk to the director. But to unequivocally say that this is wrong and this is pornographic and how could a Muslim woman do this, it's just the same old story that I know better than a woman. But this is from a female perspective, from a mother's perspective. So it's going to look different than what you see, which was this Netflix poster. And Netflix has since apologized for this poster because it was hypersexualized. They put the real picture that she wanted and created of her movie that was at Sundance and did so well. And now, now no, everybody wants to watch it because I truly believe Netflix did it on purpose. And again, it's another way of how Western media screws people of color and people who are different and minorities. So, now she's got death threats coming from non-Muslims and Muslims. So here's the
Mm-hmm.
thing. When you have a certain political party or a certain political movement that's picked up its torches and it's coming after somebody or something, that thing is probably right. And I'm talking about those really diehard pro-lifers, pro-you-know-whaters, red hatters. They hate this movie and they haven't even watched it. And they're the ones that have like 17 different petitions against it. And I'm like, as soon as I saw that, I was like, I'm probably going to watch it eventually, not now. But I'm like, I know there's probably some benefit in this. And, that's our soapbox for today. Do not write something off, especially when it's coming from the mouth of a Black woman or a person of color, female, a minority. Because remember, if we start oppressing them, I mean, we're in it with the rest of everybody. And then the pitchforks are going to come after us. That's exactly what happened after 9/11, guys. So my soapbox is I have not watched Cuties, but I'm going to watch Cuties because I'm going to support a Black Muslim mom always. That's it.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. I'm glad I knew you were the right person to ask because I was just kind of skimming different things and I'm like, what in the world is this about? And
Yeah. And
honestly, I have
opinions are on
they're
opposite
very
ends.
skewed and very opposite. Exactly. So the fact that you're right, never judge a book by its cover. So perhaps it is worth looking into and for us to kind of make maybe that we can do that on a chai chat another day, like talk
Yeah.
about what the actuality is after watching it versus what our preconceived notions were. And again, I'm reserving judgment because I haven't seen it and I don't know enough about it. But thank you so much for that soapbox for today.
There
But
you go.
we're still in our series of amazing female Muslim scholarship. So to talk about strong Muslim voices, the fact that we at Mommyingwhile Muslim really want to support some of these female scholars. And the funny thing is, like a lot of other females, guess what? We don't want to take that title, but they are amazing women and learned in their own right. And the reality of the situation is we're going to call them the leaders of our soul because I love it when another female can talk to me about what it is that I need to learn and to grow as a person and in my spirituality. Um, so I am going to introduce our next guest because the reality is, I don't know about you, Uzma, is that, I have had a hard time getting connected with the Quran for what it is during the pandemic. It's just been really hard to kind of like delve in. And to be honest with you, it was a little bit before, and I should have used this opportunity as a way to really delve into more of that chronic understanding and learning. So it's such a blessing for us today that we have Dr. Saadia Mian, who joins us and is going to talk about the Quran and our role of our day to day. She happens to be a full time endocrinologist. Get this, during medical school. During everybody. She
Yeah.
went to Syria to study Arabic and Quran and to learn the sacred knowledge of it. She memorized the Quran, and after medical school, she helped launch the Rabata Quran program that you actually heard earlier about this month. And she teaches tajweed or Quranic pronunciation. She probably wants to teach me right now as I'm even pronouncing these words. But she has a book out called The Crowning Venture. It's her first book talking about the journeys of several Muslim women, many of them that are literally moms like ourselves with multiple roles and multiple things that we have to juggle, that have completed their chronic memorization and what it takes to do that and why it is important for us to even contemplate doing that. So thank you so much, Dr. Mia, for joining us today. I think you want to be off camera because you want the focus to be on the book, but we definitely appreciate it. And welcome to Mommyingwhile Muslim.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum. I'm so happy to be here.
Walaikum assalam. It's so good to have you on here because I actually did a couple of chai chats about the Crowning Venture when it came out. And I was reading it, and then when I finished it, I kind of did a summary of it. So I really love it, but we're going to table that discussion about why I love it and why it's such a cool book while we talk a little bit about your family background, a little bit about yourself first.
Okay, so as you mentioned, I am an endocrinologist, hormone doctor. I live in Michigan, where I've lived most of my life. I work in Dearborn. I am on the board of Rabata, and I just recently, alhamdulillah, graduated with the teaching certificate from Rabat. So I've been very busy with learning and teaching. I also teach for the Rabat program, and it's a wonderful opportunity for women to be able to learn from women. Yeah,
That's what Anse Tamara was
that's me.
talking about last week when she said, like women learn best around other women and what Rabata brings as an opportunity for us. So that's really amazing. Can you talk? We usually ask our guests to talk a little bit about their mom's story, but you can talk about your mom and her role in your education and the endeavors that you've undertaken.
Okay, great. That's a wonderful topic because, of course, I love my mom. She is amazing. Mashallah, she was very, she's very much stressed the importance of education for my sisters and I. That was important for her to not only for us to get a secular education and pursue that from the bottom of our hearts, but when it came time for me to decide to make that decision to go to Syria and learn Arabic and Quran and the other Quranic sciences at a time when a lot of women were not doing that, a lot of women were not traveling abroad, she she also supported that, mashallah. The thing was, at that time we didn't have internet like we have now. This was back in 1998, the first time that I went to Syria. So that was the one of the only ways to have access to scholarship like that.
Mhm.
And so it really set the stage for me, to have this amazing mother who valued knowledge, and especially valuing Islamic knowledge, religious knowledge, believing that this is something that her daughters should pursue. When I went there, it was just very easy for me to just fall in step with learning from these women, learning from women scholars, and really taking advantage of this opportunity.
That's
That's really,
amazing.
sorry,
Pre-war
we're on
Syria, it feels like that's the
yeah.
place where everybody wanted to go for education.
No, and
Yeah, at
is
the
and the question I wanted to ask you is, were you there at the same time that Ansay Tamara Gray was there? Did you guys overlap at all, timing wise?
Yeah, so that's exactly where my story started. When I went initially for 3 weeks, thinking I was going just to learn Arabic. I ended up within a few days of getting there meeting Ansi Tamra. She listened to some of us recite Quran and Tajweed. Like, she listened to our Quranic recitation. When she listened to mine, she told me, well, if you can extend your trip, you could get a certificate to teach Quran. So when I went, I was like, oh, I'm going to learn Arabic. And literally, I had a ticket to come back in 3 weeks
Oh,
because
wow.
that was, yeah, because actually the way that happened is one of my older sister's friends was going to Syria for just 3 weeks. And that's what made my mom feel more comfortable initially.
Mhm.
But once I got there, I felt comfortable. I called home, asked if I could extend my trip. I had the summer off before I was going to be starting medical school, and I extended it to 4.5 months.
Wow.
I ended up working on Quran the whole time, pretty much focusing on that. I got my ijaza to teach Quran 4 days before I came back. No, sorry, I got it like, yeah, a few days before I came back, and then when I got back, 4 days after I got back, I started medical school.
Gosh.
So yeah, it was a
Time with jet
whirlwind.
lag. That's crazy funny because I don't remember having time in medical school to do anything except studying like science. So, because it's not just like memorizing Quran that's the hard part, right? It's the revision so that you don't forget it.
Right, and that is
That's a lot of
always
work.
a struggle.
Mhm.
It's something that I found that going through one the first time was quite. I didn't find it too difficult, especially because I was in that atmosphere. That's what I was focusing on. It is more of a challenge to make it a part of your everyday life when you're doing so many other things like working full time. But that's part of the journey, is realizing that it's something that we get to make a part of our everyday life, and we get to, even if it's a small amount every day, but spend that time with the Quran. I even tell people, if you're really struggling, start at 5 minutes.
Mhm.
Start at 5 minutes a day, but do it consistently, and just wait and see what doors are going to open. Slowly, the more you end up spending time with it, you're going to want to spend more time with it, and that's going to increase. It's going to go to 10 minutes. And maybe you're not going to be able to do hours a day, like I did when I was in Syria. I know that's something I dream of, but I know I can't do that. So the person that I'm reciting to now, because of course we always need to be reviewing, told me pick something you'll stick to. Just do 20 minutes a day. So it's like anything in life, anything that's important to us, we can either put it off and tell ourselves we don't have time, or we can find a way to start somewhere. And starting is the hardest thing. Once you've started something, it's always easier after that. And it's all about habit formation. I talk about a lot of that in my workshop that I just did recently called the Crowning Venture Workshop about Quran memorization. I go through so many tips just on how to form habits before I even get into the nitty gritty of how to actually memorize Quran.
I attended that workshop actually, and I really appreciated some of the tips that were in there to memorize. Um, but I think they can be, a lot of people hesitate when we say memorize Quran, especially moms, because it's like, oh, one more thing. I can't do one more thing right now, especially right now, right? With school
Mm-hmm.
and work and all of that stuff. But I think those tips would be useful in just reading Quran too. Could you share just maybe a couple of gems from those tips that you gave us on Sunday?
Yeah, so, and that's a good point that you brought up because ultimately, when we start out and we talk about memorizing Quran, yes, it is Mount Everest. That's what it seems like.
Mhm.
I always recommend to people start out with the most important thing, which is learning how to recite the Quran properly. That is something that every Muslim should be able to do.
Right.
And that's something that, of course, if you have access to a teacher, and I mentioned in the workshop that nowadays with the internet, we don't really have any excuse because we can find teachers all over the world.
Right.
And so the first step, I always say, take things step by step. Once you start with the tajweed and you spend all that time working on that, just I like to see things go organically. For me, it was very organic. I didn't go to Syria thinking, "Oh, I'm going to memorize Quran." I went, "Oh, I'm learning Arabic." That was completely. I mean, it's part of the journey too. It's absolutely part of the journey. But then after that, okay, I got my ijazah in tajweed, not thinking, "Oh, I'm going to memorize." But after I completed that, it was the process that was important because spending so much time on each letter, spending so much time reciting and reciting out loud made me develop an attachment and a love for the Quran that just made made it easy to take the next step. It's not something I had to think about. And I would also urge for even for children. Now there's different points of view. For some people believe that very young children. I'm talking, where they can't even read yet. That just have them memorized by repeating after you, and that's one stage. That's important. They can learn the small surahs like that. But when it comes to children, the important thing is to make sure that it's a journey that when they're young, make it fun, whatever it takes to make it fun for them when they're very, very young. So they develop this love for the Quran. Because the worst thing that could happen is that they're forced to do something that they're not even into yet. It's like going from 0 to 100. Instead of taking it step by step, let's have this child develop love for the Quran somehow, whatever it is. Whether it means they're going to get together with friends and there's going to be, a party, and they're going to do some kind of go over some of the surahs together, or whatever it is that makes it enjoyable for them. And as they grow up, then hopefully they develop that love and attachment themselves, because there is this barakah that comes from reciting the Quran. So it's that's one thing, is just realize that the journey, don't don't get scared by this whole, like, oh, I have to memorize the entire Quran. It's all a part of the journey, learning the tajweed, learning Arabic, learning tafsir, understanding what it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us. The most important thing is a relationship with the Quran, whether it's children or adults. And then from there, other tips that are important. Number one, intention. For especially as adults, for our intention to be very clear. Why we're doing this. We're doing it for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're doing it because these are His words. Obviously finding a teacher is the second thing I tell people, learning tajweed. And then just, I think from there, it's a matter of staying consistent. That's the number 4 piece of advice I would give. It's finding whatever it takes just to be consistent, make it a daily part of your life, and see where things go from there.
Yeah.
That's really great, because I do think that if you do things in little bits and consistently, you develop these habits, and then all of a sudden your day feels empty when you don't do it. The one question I have for you is, obviously I have, my mother is a convert, and she is in the process of learning the Arabic, and it's so cute because she had the same chronic teacher as my younger two. So it was fun that she was really attempting to learn, but in the meantime she was really reading the Quran in English. How do you feel about that for people that are just like, okay, Arabic, I haven't learned it. I'm coming into Islam a little bit later in life. I'm in the process of learning it. But in the meantime, I'm going to read the translation. But so I have a two-part question. One, how do you feel about that? And two, do you have an English translation Quran that you found in your experience is a better fit for those newer Muslims?
That's a great question. I absolutely believe, for example, in your mom's situation, it's beautiful that she's reading the English. And although I believe that it is important to learn how to recite in Arabic, even if we don't understand it, even if we're not to the point where we're fluent in Arabic, that is important because there's a special barakah or blessing that comes from reciting in Arabic. That it's not the same in English. However, it is still very important to understand the Quran. So absolutely, it's important to read a translation. In fact, when I was memorizing, I used to, you know, look at a translation of each page before I would start. And sometimes with pencil, lightly, I would put the translation in there, for the first few words of each ayah so that it could help me in the memorization. As my Arabic got better, I didn't really rely on that anymore. But it goes to show two things. Number one, I started memorizing even before I understood Arabic. Um, Memorizing the Quran actually helped me with Arabic. So now when I study Arabic, it helps me because I can go back and look at the most beautiful example of grammar there is on this planet. There's nothing more beautiful than the Quranic Arabic. It's the epitome. And so it's like each way helps each other. Um, and at the same time, again, I am very much about not beating ourselves up because we just don't think that we have gotten that where we need to be, or I'm behind. Comparing ourselves to other people it's not helpful. In our journey, that's one thing that I really stress is where you are, just keep on going. So your mom is reading the English. That's beautiful. If she has the opportunity to also learn Arabic, even if it means learning a few surahs, that's beautiful.
No, I love
I
that.
love
As
the
Thank
far
you.
as a
here. Yeah. Start where you are.
yeah, and don't compare. I mean, at the end of the day, that just paralyzes us when we compare. We get down on ourselves. It doesn't help us to move forward. At the end of the day, each one of us is going to stand before God by ourselves. It's a personal journey, and we just look at ourselves and say, okay, what do I want to do um, before I die? I don't. It doesn't. It's not going to matter what other people did.
That's
Yeah.
true.
So and then as far as a translation that I recommend, back in the day, I just used like the standard Yusuf Adi. As far as now, I found one that has word-to-word translation in it, as well as it has the whole translation on the side. Um, I like that one just because now I look more at words as I'm going
Yes.
through. And that one, I don't remember like which company made that one, but it's a nice tool to have, a nice resource, I should say.
So far what I hear is consistency, comparison, as in don't do it. And
Hmm.
then, so these are I think things for ourselves, but obviously as moms, we're always looking for a way to incorporate it in our kids' lives. The comparison thing is important because for those of us whose native language is not Arabic, which is the majority of the Muslim world, 80% being non-Arabic speaking, you know, the three majority countries where there is Islam, there is that practice of memorizing without understanding. And you're talking about the beauty of it. Well, I think it's also this kind of cultural tradition, like our kids are going to memorize Quran. And I always wanted to, but my dad's big thing was, oh, no, 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 you can't get out of school. Because my teacher, my Tajweed teacher, when I was like 11 or 12, said I had to drop out of school for 2 years to memorize. And my
Yeah.
dad was like, no, 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 my daughter will be a doctor. She can't do that, you know? So
Hmm.
I lost that opportunity. I tried on my own with him, but only got so far. So it was something that I kind of always regretted. I was like, no problem, I'll get my kids to do it. In that, okay, kids should memorize it. And I happen to have two boys first, so it made sense. So moms are kind of, I feel like we're doing a lot of that comparison too. We forget to compare our own Quranic knowledge and we start focusing on our kids. Oh, well, their kid has already memorized so much, and their kid is having their Amin party or the completion of their Quran party, or that person has memorized blah, blah, their kid has memorized so much. And so we feel the pressure a lot of times of getting our kids into Quranic study. What can we do better in terms of that? I mean, we're supposed to compete in good deeds, right? This is a major good deed. So how do we reconcile that, not doing the grass is greener thing, but also competing to do good deeds like memorizing Quran for our kids?
So, I, a caveat to like don't compare is healthy competition, and I stress the healthy part,
Hmm.
can actually be a good thing. It can be a catalyst to do more. Um, it actually helps me. I'm a competitive person. I love having people around me that are doing more than me because I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, it gets me going. Now, when it comes to the children issue, before we talk about, competition with children, but what you mentioned as far as a lot of women kind of forgetting their own journey and focusing on their children, as part of the book, I actually did some interviews of women who helped their children memorize. And there was going to be a whole another part that was going to be about children and the moms who help them or the teachers who help them. The reason I say moms is most of the time I've seen that it ends up being the moms who end up driving their child to the masjid back and forth, putting in that time. And of course, there are probably some dads who do it. But, for the sake of this book, it's looking at the women. Um, is that now we actually decided, my editors decided to take that part out and make that a second book so that the first book was just focusing on women because of that reason, that for women to realize that their journey is not over just because they have kids. There's women in there who had 4 kids, and started memorizing close to 40 years old. One lady was above 60 years old when she started. So all those stories are in there. And to really, that was part of my purpose in doing interviews of different women, was that when I shared my story in the book, I realized not everyone's going to be able to go to Syria. Not everyone is going to have the exact same journey that I had, but there's so many women who have had other journeys. And I wanted to share those so everybody could resonate with one of them. And so that's one thing, is it's not over for women. It's beautiful to have if your children do it, but do it alongside with them. And even if it's just literally, I'm saying like 10 minutes a day, if you can devote that time. One of the main tips I also give is do it right after Fajr. Do it in the morning time when there's time to yourself. The family's not awake. It's tied to something. So there's this thing called habit stacking from a book called Atomic Habits, where there's something you do anyways. So tie other habits to it so that it becomes something you can become more consistent with it. So that time with Fajr, after Fajr, it's a time that's witnessed. Inna Quran al-Fajr kana mashhuda. It's like in the Quran we know that it's a time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said is a special time for that. Now when it comes to children, I think your question was about like not having it be competition. Again, it
Right.
comes down to intention. So it can't, it shouldn't be one of those things like, okay, I just want my child to be the best in everything. Therefore, Quran is one of those things that everyone is doing nowadays. So therefore, yes, they're gonna, as along with their karate, they're gonna become black belt. They're gonna, nowadays, what are people doing? They're gonna, have an app done before they graduate from high school. They're gonna make an app. And also they're gonna, memorize the Quran. I mean, it's a very delicate journey when it comes to children because again, like I said, it can backfire. First of all, your intention needs to be like one it needs to be pure. Like you want your child to do this because you want your child to have the Quran in their heart because it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's words, and you want them to be a person of strong faith. You want them to be a person of the Quran. But the other thing is also they need to want it themselves. Now, some people will say, okay, children are too young to make that kind of decision. That is true when they're young. Provide them the opportunity to have fun interactions with the Quran. Get them to love the Quran when they're really young.
Hmm.
As they get older, I mean, we hope that they have this attachment and it's something that they want to do themselves. Um, if it comes down to an absolute like forcing them to do it, um, it can back now again, very young children, like it's hard for them to make decisions, but sometimes it backfires. When they're done, they'll be like, okay, I
I've
don't
never
want to
wanted
pick
to
this
touch
book
it
up
again.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that can happen.
Hmm.
So to just be really careful. And I believe that a lot of it is tied to intention. What's going to happen even to the child and how they're going to feel about it. When your intention is pure and it's the right intention, I believe it brings barakat. It's going to bring blessing to this journey. And then also just realize that not every single child is going to memorize the Quran. Some
Right.
people, for some children, they're better at it. It's something that it just resonates with them. They're just gonna choose it themselves. They're gonna love it. For some, maybe they're gonna be in the middle, like okay, they kind of want to do it. Maybe they're not that great at it, but okay, they still want to do it. There's gonna be some it's just not their thing. And to just recognize that now that doesn't mean that they shouldn't cannot have a relationship with the Quran. Every child, every adult should have a relationship with the Quran,
Hmm.
and it may not be memorizing for every single child or every single adult, but there should be a daily connection with the Quran where some portion of it is recited.
Yeah.
Whether it's whether you read one page a day, whether you're studying the tafsir, something. I actually believe even if you're studying Arabic, even if you're studying tafsir, there should be a portion that you recite daily as a word. Like it's something that you do daily. Whether for some people it's a juz. Like I said, it could be pick however much you can stick to and do that. And that's regardless of if anyone ever memorizes or not. There should be that time, Quran time. And for children, like you can have Quran time when they're young, and it becomes a habit.
I think that goes right back to the point of consistency that Zeba was talking about earlier. Even before the recording, actually, she was talking about consistency. So, do you have something up, Zeba? Because I don't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, yeah. I always have to wait because of the 2 second delay. I hate talking over people, but you're making some really amazing points. And the one thing we were actually speaking with the owners of the Dream Journal, and the Dream Journal essentially is just that. It's a gratitude journal from the place of Islam, and part of it is like these habits, building these progressive. Islamic spiritual meditative habits to kind of give graciousness and to yourself and your soul, and to be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all the things versus focusing on the negative things. The one thing she mentioned, because throughout the book they have all these quotes of like different scholars in Islam and famous Muslim people like Malcolm X, and they're great, powerful quotes. But the one thing she mentioned, she was like, we were really trying to focus on making a balance between the male and female quotes because we wanted equal representation. But she said, I was finding a very hard and difficult time in finding these female scholars, the quotes from people, the women in Islam taking the mic. Do you find, as a female scholar of Islam right now, that you have had those experiences where people don't want you to come in and talk to them? Or have you had the opposite where people are open and receptive and welcoming to your point of view?
So just to clarify, I don't consider myself a scholar, but
I know
you
all
None
the
of the
women
women do.
talk to are like, we're not scholars. Stop talking like that. But as a woman that I can go to, like if I'm going to go and learn the Quran and recitation, I'm going to call you up, or I'm going to go to Rabata. I'm going to do all of those types of things. So I appreciate that you don't consider yourself a scholar, but why is it that there are enough female scholars in the space right now? And what can we do as the mothers of the next generation to ensure that we have the appropriate representation moving forward? Maybe you can answer that.
so that's a great question. First, actually, the interesting thing about the Dream Journal is I've been working actually for more than a year now on a crowning venture planner,
Ooh.
and that actually I have been doing the same thing, looking for quotes from women. And it's funny because I first went through, I had both men and women, and then I was talking with my editors. We had a meeting, and her daughter was in the back, and she's like, wait, why isn't it all women? Because this is like the crowning venture, inspiration from women who have memorized the Quran. So I'm back to the
Exactly.
drawing board, and I've noticed the same thing. It's one thing to find female Muslim women quotes um, is is hard. First of all, finding quotes from women, there's less than there are from men. But then, for them to be Muslim also. So it's something that I'm actually in the process of working on right now. The planner also has a lot of space for things like gratitude and vision, all of these different things. It's going to be a companion to the Crowning Venture book
I love
to help
that.
in the journey. And so I personally have not felt any kind of pushback and in any of the spaces that I've been invited to speak so far. Now, of course, is because I'm a woman, has that been sort of funneled so that there's a lot of opportunities that just haven't even come my way. Perhaps now it's I'm kind of I go with the flow as far as even like going out and speaking and things like that. And so far, I'm not necessarily like searching to fill my schedule up, with,
Yes,
um,
you're busy.
you know, yeah. So,
Let's just be
you know,
real.
maybe that's part of it. But everywhere that I've been invited, I've had positive feedback. I mostly, for the most part, I speak only in front of women.
Mhm.
There's been a few occasions where I have, spoken in mixed audiences, and the reception was always good. So, yeah, and as far as the next generation, there's so many more opportunities for learning that I think that we are in such a place right now that the internet has provided opportunities that
Yes,
did not exist before.
Mhm.
The whole Rabat certificate, the whole
Mhm.
program is online. And we have teachers from all over the world. We have students all over the world. And I mean, we have students in the Maldives. We
that's
have students
amazing.
in South America, Australia. Um, somebody contacted me the other day. She wanted to buy my book. She's in Mauritius. So the world has like shrunken.
It has.
So all these opportunities are there, and I see a tide of Muslim women scholars that's going to increase. And even even nowadays, when I compare it to when I first went to Syria and I made this decision to memorize the Quran, the when I came back, I mean, I felt no. When I was in Syria, I saw hundreds of women doing it, girls, women of all ages. And when I came back, I felt very alone because
Aw.
I wasn't surrounded by that anymore, and it was even my friends who even the people that I was with that we were doing it together. There was a lot of like, oh, we're not going to talk about it with each other because of this like modesty or like humility of like, okay, this is where I've reached, and so it was kind of a lonely time, and I even had some pushback, not pushback, but I remember one time a very good friend of our family's, an auntie who was visiting from out of town, and her sons had all memorized the Quran. Her daughters had not, but when I came down, and I was so happy to see her, and this was like shortly after I had come back having memorized, and I thought she was going to be happy, and instead she was like, bete, girls shouldn't memorize the Quran because when they grow up, they're going to have too much housework, and they won't be able to
Oh my
review.
gosh.
And I like literally imagine a balloon just being popped, and um,
Oh.
but the things have changed so much that I recently, last year, the same auntie came and visited us, and she was proudly telling me how not only her granddaughters but her great granddaughters, all of them had either memorized the Quran or were in the journey somewhere.
Oh, mashallah.
And so I feel like times have changed, and I see so many more girls memorizing Quran now here in the U.S.
Hmm.
And that's really beautiful. So I think with time and more opportunities, you know, I think things are shifting where there is a place now for female scholarship, and not only that, but opportunities for the daughters. There's there there's so many opportunities now. It's so different than, I mean, and even back in the day, I think opportunities in the U.S. were limited for the boys as well. So both sides, the opportunities have increased, and for both, we need real solid scholarship.
Mhm.
Not just like, okay, I'm just reading books and I'm learning on my own. No, we need people to be able to learn from scholars who have spent the time and put in the time. Um, so I hope that
It's
answers the
kind of that
question.
apprenticeship model that I think you're talking about, that historically is how Islamic scholarship, all scholarship started, and
Hmm.
Islamic, I think, scholarship formalized it. Like you learn at the feet of your teachers, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So as moms, like this is really resonating with me, especially the whole part of our daughters, because like you growing up as a child of the 80s, I saw the hifz or memorization of the Quran pushed on the sons. The fact that it was something, I was interested in was not, there's no place for me to go in the United States. And going to Syria, it was like unheard of. Like I couldn't go down the street. Hello. So that's like incredible.
Sounds
It's
like
pretty
I'd love to
progressive
hear
that
that conversation with your parents. "Hi, I'm gonna go to Syria." Yeah,
oh,
no,
in
that's not
Syria,
happening.
yeah, let's master getting to the bus stop, you know? So, I think it's important to, because the kids are learning their tarbiyah and their Quran in our laps, the laps of mothers, that lap needs to be equitable for our gendered, regardless of the gender of their kids. It's like, this is what
Mhm.
everybody should be learning. These are the opportunities that we're going to offer. And it doesn't matter what body parts you do or do not have, we're going to make this equitable. But more importantly, I think out of this discussion, what I'd like everybody to take away is that the onus is on us. We can't teach what we don't know, so if we don't learn it, that is super important. Now, we've been talking, kind of alluding to the crowning venture. Dr. Saadia, can you tell the audience why the title is the title, so that maybe somebody will get inspired to say, oh, I need to do this for myself as much as I need to do this for my kids?
Yeah, so the title, the inspiration for it was twofold. Number one, there's a beautiful hadith about how the person who memorizes the Quran crowns their parents on the day of judgment. In the hereafter, their parents are crowned. That was one big part of the title. The other part was when I was in Syria, anytime like a girl or a woman had completed either her, ijazah in tajweed or, had gotten her ijazah in memorization, there would be a huge party, like a huge celebration, tons of food and singing and dancing, and that at these parties, the person who completed the Quran, um, she would be wearing these white robes, and there would be a crown on her head.
Oh,
So that was the second part, sort of the visual of just the way it was, the way we should be celebrating the Quran. We celebrate so many things. We celebrate graduations, we celebrate weddings and baby showers, and we go all out. But when somebody memorizes the Quran, that should be the biggest celebration of all, you know?
Mhm,
I mean, or at least equal to. I mean, this is something that is for this dunya and for the akhirah. I mean, of course, I mean, all those things are also, for both the dunya and the akhirah, and they're beautiful things. Of course, we should celebrate all of those things.
mhm,
But, somehow we tend to not only not celebrate as much as we should, but almost downplay it, maybe, hide it. When I interviewed people for my book, the women, a lot of them said they didn't even want people to know that they had memorized the Quran. They kept it
wow.
secret because they didn't want to be labeled. They didn't want people to think that, oh, she's a goody two shoes. They didn't want people to think that she's too good for us now. So there's all of these things that um, we tend to not celebrate when it comes to the Quran, and when I'm not sure if the same um, situation exists with men and boys who do it, but I have seen how when boys do it, it's always from then on, like, the there's the license plate, like, Hafiz,
Mm-hmm.
Ahmed or whatever,
I've seen that. That's exactly
yeah.
I have
right.
not seen that.
So
But
like,
it's true,
it's like
women
you'll see that
downplay their
everywhere.
all the time. So,
Yeah.
and this is the big one, especially because if you're looking for a teacher and there's a hafiza or a woman who's memorized Quran in your neighborhood, you won't know because she's too busy fighting her own demons and imposter syndrome to come out and say, hey, I am a hafiza and I can guide you on what works and what doesn't work on your journey to do the same. Or if it's
Hmm.
not to complete your hits, at least to learn how to read it properly,
Hmm.
at the bare minimum. So, I totally hear you. Like women do not get the oomph that the guys do. A boy memorize one juz and there's like a huge party. A girl, oh well, she's gonna forget it anyway when she. I don't think that part has gone away. That oh, a
Hmm.
girl is gonna grow up and it's gonna come to nothing. What do you mean it's gonna come to nothing? She's gonna have it now to teach her children. I don't understand why that's not celebrated. I don't know why that's not expected, and I don't know where that's coming from. I
Hmm.
have no clue.
Yeah.
Well, if
Yeah. I
I
mean, and it's true.
if it were me, I would walk around with a crown on my head all the time, okay? Because
I'm
that's how
ordering one
it
right
should
now.
be. Exactly. That's how it should be. The one thing I really want to say, because we're focusing on the kids and the daughters, and of course I want to do that. But the one thing I want to point out to the mothers that have like yourself thought, I have thought about it. I was discouraged because we were definitely part of a generation where that happened. That was one of the negativity. We're of a certain age, and that was something that happened. We weren't necessarily as promoted or supported as maybe our male counterparts. But the one thing I'd love to remind people, and a lot of the moms that come to me even now, is the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did not become a prophet till he was in his 40s.
Oh, I
And
love it.
you see what I'm saying? So, like, why would we stop ourselves from doing and achieving everything that we can? Because age is just a number. And if a being can start a movement in his 40s, what can moms do, in our 40s. So let's get this done. And now, to your point, Dr. Mia, like with the internet and with the Rabata Institute, when the world is so much smaller and we can fit these moments in our day, why can't it be for the mothers now too? So that's my mini soapbox, and I'm going to leave it there.
I'm just
I'm
gonna
so
give
glad you
you a
said that
standing
because
ovation.
yeah, I'm glad you said that because the conversation did go to children and then women. Okay, you can help your children. Then if you know the Quran, you can help them. But it's not only about that. It's about her own
Yes,
journey, her own relationship with Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. To have the Quran in her heart. To through my studies in Rabat, every time I take a class, and there's a mention of an ayah, it's beautiful because I know what the teacher is talking about.
exactly.
It's helping me in studying the Quran. It's one of the main reasons that we also memorize is to recite it in our prayer, and we're all praying.
Hmm.
Everybody's praying. So, and that has nothing to do with when it comes to the children bit. Even though, yes, imagine it is beautiful to have that and to be able to, share that with your children and guide them. But regardless, it's a huge deal for each individual what they do with the Quran because at the end of the day, your children will not be with you
Yes.
in the hereafter.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, inshallah, in Jannah, everyone's together. But when it comes time that when we're standing before Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, each person is going to be by themselves.
Hmm.
And it's
Absolutely.
great. I mean, your children they can give you a crown, inshallah.
I want my
But
crown. This is the first I've heard of that, and I want my crown. I'm going to tell
But
my
we
kids,
also want to give
give me
that
my
crown to our
crown.
parents. So,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
yeah,
Well, my mom will get a
yeah.
crown next week's her birthday. So now I know what I'm sending her, and she's listening and watching now. So guess what? She's gonna know what's in that box when it comes from the store. But no, I definitely appreciate that.
yeah, that's beautiful. So, Dr. Sadia, can you tell us some of the offerings that are coming up? We've heard an allusion to a part two to Crowning Venture, so I'm super
Hmm.
excited about that. But are there any other classes or workshops that are coming up to kind of help moms on their own individual journeys toward getting closer to the Quran?
Yeah, so I teach the Crowning Venture memorization class. It's for the people who are memorizing and also reading through the Quran the first time through in Tajweed. I teach that class for Rabat. Rabat has an amazing Tajweed program. It starts from the very basics. So if somebody doesn't even know the letters, there's a class for you. And there's a class, it takes you through step by step, which is beautiful because it takes the guesswork out of it until you get to that point. Then inshallah, there's so many people now who are in the stage where they've started memorizing again, and that just shows it's a step-by-step process. There's I'm also so I have the Crowning Venture Planner coming out very soon, inshallah,
That's exciting.
as well as inshallah next year, inshallah, part two of the Crowning Venture will
Yay.
be is in the works. And I'm always doing exciting things. I do hope to hold another workshop in the future. However, this workshop will be available. The recording will be available to purchase, and it'll be like sort of going through modules on your own. Um, and as soon as that's up, it will be posted in my Instagram.
Okay. And your Instagram, just so that you can tell people on air what that is, we'll include it in our show notes, but not everybody reads those. So if you want to just tell everybody.
Yeah, so my Instagram is Saadia Mian MD.
Mhm. So we will have that on show notes, people. I hope that that incentivizes you to go take a listen to it. I'm just always super excited to learn more about the Quran and to have examples because honestly, I read The Crowning Venture because I thought, unfortunately, that it was too late for me. And so I was
Hmm.
looking for an inspiration on what can I do at this age. And, as Zeba beautifully mentioned, the Prophet ﷺ did not attain prophethood until he was 40. So why am I cheating myself out of this opportunity? And it just, all those stories were so inspiring to me, like regular women, extraordinary. Well, they're not regular, they're extraordinary because they took their ordinary lives and like upped their game by saying, okay, on top of everything else I do, they took advantage of those blessed hours in the morning. They took advantage of those hours at the night after the kids were gone to bed. And they did what they needed to do for themselves. you know, to be able to wear that crown and to give it to their parents too. But I just thought it was super inspirational, and I'm so glad for this opportunity to talk to you. And we're going to be looking out for what's coming up next on your website. So jazakallah khair for coming today.
Wiyaki, thank you so much for having me, both of you. Also, I did want to mention that I have Crowning Venture gift sets available through my Instagram. That includes there was a picture of it, the book in a golden bag along with a pop socket and a matching bookmark. And
Are we
so
allowed
if you
to like submit? Are we allowed to do that?
Oh, I don't know. Are we?
Can we? Let's see.
Now
I
that
don't
we
know if
had
I'm
you on our show, would you still accept our entries
for
for the gift
the
set
gift
if we
set.
wanted to?
oh yeah, that's fine.
If you have
Oh,
giveaways, we'll enter, but otherwise we can just order
oh
it. Yeah,
yeah,
that
sorry,
sounds like a
that
good deal.
giveaway is over. Yeah,
Oh, it's
Oh,
that
it's
over.
giveaway
over.
is over. Sorry.
Yeah.
I
So we'll
will,
just have to
maybe I'll
keep
have
this.
another one.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay. We'll just
Yeah.
do that.
that's cool. But there it is, the gift set. And so if anybody wants that, that's available on your website, right, Dr. Sadia?
It's available through my Instagram. I have a link tree.
Instagram.
So
Oh, okay,
yeah,
okay. So that's where you click.
yeah.
So if you don't have an Instagram account, you won't be able to get it, guys. So if you want it, go get it over there. And any final thoughts, Dr. Sadia, before we let you go for your wonderful weekend?
No, thank you very much for having me on your lovely podcast. I could talk about Quran for hours. It was really lovely talking with you, and you asked wonderful questions. So nice
Jazakallah.
meeting you. Yeah, nice meeting you both. And inshallah, I just pray that for me, just for everybody to have some kind of relationship with the Quran is uh, that's what makes me happy. If somebody hears something that I share and it gets them motivated about the Quran, that's my vision. That's my goal. So
100%. 100%. And I think you've definitely inspired both of us. I can't speak for Zeba, but I'm sure she's nodding. So you've inspired both of us. Our daughters, because my daughter thought this was a princess book, so she picked it up. Her name is Rania. So, yeah, she's my little queen. So she thinks it's a princess book, and she's been reading it and having some difficulty. So we're working through it together slowly. So you've inspired our households, and we hope that more households with females in them, that's usually who's listening, like over 95% of our audience is that y'all are inspired too by this conversation, and that your love for Quran grows. Baby steps, one line a day, guys. If that's what you can do, it's going to improve you, it's going to improve your kids, it's going to improve your households, inshallah. Jazakallah khair for joining us today. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Like,
Assalamu alaikum.